Honestly, I was surprised, guys, when y'all nearly unanimously demanded I prioritize Bandai's new Tiny Session toy as my second review coming back from that long hiatus. But I'm a man of the people, so today, Scorched Earth Toys at anymoon.com is pitting Bandai's plucky newcomer Tiny Session VF-25 against its spiritual forefather, Bandai's SD Infinity VF-25. We begin our battle with the boxes, but there's nothing special about either of them. The Tiny Session toys hit shelves in November 2022. You can grab yours at Big Bad Toy Store for $49.99. Click my link in the comment below and search for Macross to see it and support this channel. I mean, you can pause this video, click that link, do some shopping, and come back later. It's cool. I'll wait. The SD Infinity toy was originally released in 2010 for an affordable 4,500 pre-tax yen, about the same price as the Tiny Session, but it's very hard to track down these days and no doubt would cost a big premium. Their box is a little larger than the Tiny Session and looks like this. So the boxes are whatever. What toy has the better accessories? They both have left and right accessory hands. The SD Infinity toy comes with fists installed and the accessory hands are for gripping. The Tiny Session toy comes with fists with peg holes for the gun installed, and you use the open palm accessory hands for holding the included idle. The Tiny Session accessory hands are much larger than the normal hands. Both toys come with a gun. The gun for the SD Infinity toy is more faithful to the anime with a conversion gimmick for fighter use or handheld. The Tiny Session gun is permanently in an in-between mode. Both toys include a display stand consisting of a base, an arm, and a pivot. The design of the SD Infinity display stand is simple, with the pivot and the adapters being on pegs that can swivel. Each mode has a unique adapter that pegs into the display stand. The fighter mode adapter plugs into the spot for the gun, so if you want to do aggressive banking, you'll have to display the toy without it. If you're not doing a left or right bank, you can use the gun using the Gearwalk mode adapter in fighter mode, but you won't be able to use the firing effect. Though simple, the display stand does pretty much everything you need it to do. The Tiny Session display stand has two pivot points, left, right, and up, down. Like the SD Infinity, the adapter pegs into the stand and can swivel. Unlike the SD Infinity toy, the Tiny Session toy uses the same adapter for all three modes. Unfortunately, the connection to the adapter is tenuous, popping off frequently during handling. The clear plastic makes this stand more attractive, but the arm is so small the feet nearly touch the base in Gearwalk mode, whereas the SD Infinity toys sit nice and high. Both toys also include a head, but this similarity is also one of the most glaring differences. The SD Infinity toy already has a head installed. You're getting an extra head that is slightly smaller so the toy can retain perfect transformation. The huge head that comes pre-installed is really the Batroid specific extra here. The Tiny Session toy doesn't have a head installed. It only has a piece that looks like the top of the head for fighter and Gearwalk modes. Unlike the SD Infinity toy, the Tiny Session has no way of being perfect transformation. Both toys also come with black and white instructions on printer paper, and you can find these images whenever you want at the article up on anymoon.com. The SD Infinity toy adds a dagger, allowing for bizarrely cute but menacing poses. The Tiny Session toy comes with a chibi character figure that stands 3 centimeters tall and makes an adorable accessory. There are little pegs to attach the character to either the display stand, the hand, or a cockpit. The SD Infinity toy includes a cool gun firing effect for additional visual pop. The Tiny Session toy includes stickers, which I consider a negative extra because it tells you that Bandai phoned it in on the painted on details. So the extra head, the dagger, the gun firing effect, for me, these trump the chibi character figure, so this was an easy win for the SD Infinity toy. Let's do a little slideshow to demonstrate how much better the paint applications are on the SD Infinity toy. You know it has a nicer gun, but other better elements include a white hand with gray palm accents, forearm accent and SMS logos on the shoulder, green diamond in the forehead and accents around the chin and cheeks, white swing bar, which is metal on the SD Infinity toy, black and yellow accents on the hips and a black stripe with writing on the shins, and proper accent pieces and colors on the feet. From a mold perspective, the SD Infinity toy has the proper crotch position, a less visible cockpit, and hip kibble. The Tiny Session toy cheats by moving the hip kibble to the back plate. In fighter mode, you can see the Tiny Session toy cheats again by putting leg-looking details into the back plate, whereas the SD Infinity toy pokes the legs through properly. The SD Infinity toy continues to benefit from better paint applications. There are two really nice things about the Tiny Session toy. First, it's a matte finish. Second, it has a lot more molded details, and they're sharp and well done. Both toys can't keep their intakes attached in Gearwalk mode, but the SD Infinity toy looks a lot more impressive. Part of this is the more bulbous canopy. Those fake legs and the backplate look a little silly on the Tiny Session toy in this mode. While it's not all bad for the Tiny Session toy, the winner here is clearly the SD Infinity. Both toys are very solid in fighter mode, but they're also very simple. There's no opening canopies. There are no landing gear, peg-in, or otherwise. The Tiny Session toy, it does have this cockpit that you could put the chibi character figure on. You can leave it in there at all times, and then you don't have a white cavity. Might look a little bit better that way for you. Simplicity is the name of the game here. So the Tiny Session does alter the typical VF-25 transformation in a few ways that are pretty interesting. It begins with the unpegging of the legs, which is pretty standard. You then bring these up, fold your vertical stabilizers down, sweep the wings back, unpeg the shield. All of that 100% standard. There is a couple pegs that are holding the intakes in. We're going to separate those. That allows the intakes to swing forward. If you want to, you could pull your kneecaps out a little bit at this point, and you would open up your feet. So far, pretty standard stuff. Where things get a little more interesting is this nose cone here, which swings back instead of the more typical twist that you're going to see on the SD Infinity toy. The arms, these come back around. They are on ball joints right there. We're going to bring them down like so. And then this is where things are very different. We're going to pull this back plate to extend it, and we're going to remove the faux head like so. Then it's a little more standard again. We're going to bring the nose cone down, chest back. There is a peg and a hole on the back of this plate and on the back of the nose cone. That locks together. And then we can get our feet down, put the toy down. The arms have slots that go into pegs in the chest. So you bring those up like so. Get your shield. Let's turn the fist so it's in a more natural Batroid position. Plug the shield back onto the toy, and then we grab our head part, and that's going to peg right in to that slot. And you want it to do so in a way where those covers come in front of the arms, and those arms are still pegged in. And there we go. So there you are, Batroid mode. And again, definitely some twists that you don't see on other VF-25 toys to make things a little more simple. So now here's the SD Infinity toy. And it starts transformation a very similar way, right? We're gonna pull these wings up, we can fold the vertical stabilizers over, and we can sweep the wings back. The shield is a little clumsier. It's pegged into the arms. So we're gonna bring the legs forward, we're gonna bring the arms apart, and there you can see the shield mechanism, which I will pull out here, and then fold over for use in Batroid or Garewalk modes. We'll bring those arms out. You can see they swing outward straight across like so. And then we're going to bring the front of the toy. Remember, the Tiny Session just swung back on this toy. We have a couple different things that happen, 2 different twists to bring that nose cone down and around. And then we're gonna bring it down like so, just swinging it back. And similarly here, we're gonna bring these arms around. I'm gonna bring them all the way around like so to create enough room for these wings to come back down like so. And we need to bring that back, bring that around, fish this head up and out. And then that's gonna allow us to swing the nose cone where that head was. And then we can turn the head around, bring our lasers back, and you'll see there's a couple slots in the nose cone that are gonna receive that plate if we have it all lined up properly. And granted, I am not doing a good job of trying to get everything lined up properly. So let's spend a moment on that. Let's get the shoulders where they go, the back where it goes, and now we should be able to clip that right down into position. And then we have these little tabs here that allow us to push the crotch forward. We'll open up those feet and we'll put the shield back on. Get those wings in the back where it belongs, and boom. Now this toy is in Batroid mode. As you can see, that was a lot more complicated and required fewer parts. I definitely have some fine tuning to do. One thing that the SD Infinity toy does not do as well is that swing bar doesn't really lock into place. So you kind of have to get it where you want it and then pose the toy accordingly. In Batroid mode now, and it's the perfect time to go over articulation. But before we do, I want to put them on even footing. So we're going to take the bigger head that comes with the SD Infinity toy. I'm going to take my SD Infinity smaller head. I'm going to pry it up, and it fits on there. That is like really scary for me. It fits on there so well that I'm worried if I do this a lot, I'm going to eventually break that peg off and then just have a headless SD Infinity toy. That's a very firm fit on there. You can see the hip swing bar, still a little problematic, but once you get going with it, it's not that big of a deal. All right, so now that we've got them looking as similar as we can, let's go through top to bottom, the articulation, and figure out which one does better there. Both toys have heads on ball joints, left, right, spin them all the way around. The head lasers are also ball joints, forward, back, in, or out. Then you can even cock the head left or right. Moving on to the shoulders, you can spin the shoulder all the way around. The mechanism the shoulder is on also allows you to pivot on either toy, up or down. You can cock the shoulder in or out. The SD Infinity toy has a twist in the bicep. That's inside the elbow on the Tiny Session. You can go 90 degrees at both elbows, and fists are on ball joints. Hips are on ball joints. The SD Infinity toy has a nice little twist in the thigh that's not on the Tiny Session, but the Tiny Session toy has a full 90-degree motion at the knee, while the SD Infinity can barely do anything. The Tiny Session also has ball-jointed feet, which give you all sorts of rocking ability, while the feet on the SD Infinity are very limited. So that was a fire hose approach to basically telling you that both these toys can pull off essentially the same poses, they just do it in different ways. The SD Infinity toy has metal feet, and because of that, handling the toy is a little bit more secure. I also found the twist point in the leg and in the arm to be more natural in their position and more familiar for how I pose other toys, so I like that. Again, that swing bar could really be a little stickier, but otherwise the SD Infinity toy, a little bit more fun to handle, mostly because I think the weight. The Tiny Session toy, hold me closer, Tiny Sessions. This toy is problematic to handle because I think the arm joints mostly, these are stiff at the shoulder, so anytime I go to move it, it just pivots the whole thing down, so I kind of have to hold it and then move the shoulder. So that's not ideal for me. The gap on the hip side here, that's not ideal. Yeah, you get better knee motion, but you're only going to be using that probably with the display stand because, you know, SD toys don't do a great job of action poses to begin with. So overall, maybe a draw, but I lean towards the SD Infinity for articulation. These toys are about the same height and Batroid at 10 centimeters, which is similar to an old school joke machine. They're also the same length in fighter mode at 11 centimeters. Super deform means non-scale, but if you crank the numbers, you'll find that that works out to between 1/155 and 1/180 scale. The big difference is the heft. The SD Infinity toy has metal, so it's significantly heavier at 68 grams to the Tiny Sessions 32. If you had to own only one of these toys, it's the SD Infinity toy all day long. However, there was no SD Infinity line. It was just this toy and the Eureka 7 Nerve Ash. The Tiny Session toy came into existence with 2 releases. There have already been 3 more by the time of this review. Another 2 releases are imminent, and Bandai has brought several other concepts to shows. So, while the SD Infinity toy is better, the Tiny Session line is already superior and looks like it will become the largest super deformed line in Macross history. So that's a powerful plus. Agree? Disagree? Want to suggest future reviews or comparisons? Subscribe and leave a comment. Thanks for watching.